Welcome to this new idea, the very first episode of the 19 episodes so far to exist, where I am face to face with my wonderful guest, Cathy
Whoa.
Lu,
Hi, everyone.
here in Vallejo, 6 feet apart, hanging out in this dreamy backyard that shall be no more in only 2 months. So
There'll be another dreamy backyard in the
to-
future.
to the backyard. Cathy, man, oh man, what have you been up to?
You know, just making stuff.
So like I get so excited. So I named this episode. Oh no, I'm blanking on the name of it.
I wasn't sure if you named them before or afterwards.
I do.
So
No, I named it before, and I
Oh,
named it
interesting.
"Doing Your Best" or "Doing Our Best."
Okay, I like that.
And because I asked you like what would be a good a couple of topics, and you're like, "Oh geez, I don't know. I'm not very good at these things anyway." And I just
Yeah.
thought like, boy, I feel like everybody said the same thing.
Oh,
Like
really?
almost everybody kind of had the same like. I don't know. Everything that I'm working on is a mess right now, and everything I'm like trying to figure out doesn't feel like my normal practice. But I feel like I have all this extra time, and it makes sense to like try to do, something new, but also like should take advantage of the like nobody knows exactly how to make
Yeah.
the stay-at-home order work for their practice, but everybody's super busy, and I feel like the work that's going to come out of this for everybody is going to be crazy,
Yeah.
and your work was already crazy. So
Yeah, I think, I think it's been really hard to focus because there's so much going on now too.
uh-huh.
Like I was watching your other episode with Christy Chan, another artist I really love.
Yeah.
And just this idea of like mental space, and I think thinking about, like, I know for me, like my mind's been kind of like very fragmented. It's like I'll sort of like do one thing and then I'll kind of like start something else, and trying not to like be too like precious or judgmental about what I'm doing, but just kind of focusing on like still making, like still trying to like contribute to like, being of service to like our society, our communities.
Right.
So that's kind of where like my mind has been. For
Yeah,
sure.
you've been making stuff and donating it. Explain that project that you were
Yeah,
working
I
on.
mean it's not a project at all, and honestly, like I feel so weird about social. Like I feel weird about social media. Yeah, I feel weird about social media because a lot of it is like I feel like there are things that I would rather just like it's cool to be private about stuff, and I feel like social media is this weird thing where like it becomes a lot of like virtue signaling, and but I was also like really, like I think so many people are like really thinking about like all these protests and what's happening and like the racial injustice. It's like just so in your face, you just can't ignore it, and like how do we, I don't know, how do we help make the world better? How do we contribute? It's like we're also like, I know for myself, like with the protests, I was a little wary at first because I was like, oh, COVID, like I don't want to create a situation where I get COVID and like spread it or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so anyway, so like, yeah, I have all these things in my studio because I don't sell anything. I have all these things in my studio, and also like I'm a maker, so it's like
Yeah.
I'm like always making things, and like sometimes those, not sometimes, like a lot of times those things just like live, they're just like in the studio, like in a box, and so yeah, and I was just sort of thinking like, I'm an artist, like how can I contribute as an artist? And it's like, well, I can like maybe sell artwork to make money so that I can like donate more money to Black Lives Matters,
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where that came from. And like I definitely felt a little weird. I don't know, like, and then social media, of course, like Instagram is like a really good way to like, I've never done anything like that before, but I was really surprised by how like quickly it went. It's like I have these items for sale, like I'm gonna donate all of the money. And then like, yeah, people just messaged me, they like Venmoed me, gave me their address, and then I and my partner Aaron
Yeah.
just would drop them off at their house. So it was like pretty easy way to contribute, Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And like the stuff that you were making was in your practice, out of your practice, new stuff, old stuff.
Well, the stuff that like I put for Black Lives Matters, like to fundraise, was like I had made these like black peonies along, like I don't know, I want to say like 3 or like almost like maybe 4 years ago. And those, like all of my stuff is sort of based around like Like I'm referencing a lot of like traditional Chinese like symbolism and things like that. And so peonies are like a symbol for like beauty, like beautiful.
Uh-huh.
And then, my idea with making it like I don't know, but then of course like my own experience of growing up like Asian American or Chinese Americans, like these original symbols kind of like they feel mutated, or they're like not quite enough to encapsulate the actual experience of like being alive today.
Right.
And also a lot of the symbolism is like, this idea of beauty is like very like patriarchy and whatever. So
Yeah, I love how concerned. So we've like talked about this before, but like how concerned you are about like using symbols that are from your own culture
yeah.
and feeling like you're using them for reasons that aren't honest. Like the idea of um, posing is the wrong word. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but like you've absorbed and like generate like a vast majority of your work is about that process, right? Of like being an Asian American and like folding in tropes and folding in imagery. Like I wonder how you feel about like using that experience in this other experience where it's this very like African American
Yeah.
time in culture, and like I feel personally like I just want to step back and say nothing and just listen, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I'm already like, you're so brave, you did such a great thing, and I just like I'm like texting my friends and are like, is there anything I should do? Is there anything I should do? I don't know what I should do. I'm gonna listen and celebrate and.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I also am like, yes, let's listen and like let's just like support the best way we can. Um, but yeah, it is really interesting because I feel like, at least for me, like being Asian American, and there's been a lot more, I feel like, written and said about like Asian American experience, and like this idea of like the United States being very much set up on like a binary of like black versus white.
Yeah.
And like this idea, like, and this is only something that I've been learning about more within the last like half year, about like the model minority myth and how that was kind of set up as a way to like shame blacks.
Yes.
Like you, like, look at these great Asians, like they're able to like do so well, like they're all doctors now, like they all go to Harvard, like it's not our fault, like you can't do the same. But in actuality it's because like a lot of the immigrants they would let in like during those years were already doing well in their respective countries, like they were already
Sure.
a doctor and they were coming in as
Yeah.
like being like more economically advantaged to a certain degree. Like of course all of the immigration is like very different, but
Right.
like just
yeah, and in
but just so
California.
yeah, but just the way like POC have been like pitted against each other,
Yes.
and I feel like that is like to the support of white supremacy, right? Like white supremacy is like, oh, we don't want the blacks and the Asians and the like, if we can like split everyone apart, then that's like more power for us, because they don't recognize that if we like POC like totally team together, like we'd be a much more powerful group. But instead we're like, because there's a lot of anti like blackness in the Asian communities. Like there's a lot of like weirdnesses between like different groups of color, and it's such a shame because like we do experience a lot of discrimination. Like there's a lot of things we could relate to, and I know for myself, because there hasn't been that much like Asian American. Maybe there has not that there hasn't been that much, but it's not as widely well known. Like I know for myself, like when I first read about like double consciousness, this idea that like you see yourself one way and other people see you a different way. That's like, from reading black authors and things like that, I was like, oh shit, like I totally relate to this. Like I am not black, but like you're talking about experiences that I have.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's been really useful. I think like I really appreciate like all the writings and work that like black people have done, because there's like a lot of like gaslighting that happens. There's a lot of gaslighting that happens in this country, so it's like nice to be able to like see your experiences like validated, or like be like, yes, I have also had those experiences.
Right. Or at least feel like you're on the right side of the conversation in history, and that you're working together.
Yeah.
Which I feel like that's where I have like really high hope that after this it will be everybody versus white supremacists. Like that's my biggest
Yeah.
hope, right?
I
It's
know,
like
it's the biggest hope.
like that like there'll be like we're cool. Those are the enemy, you know. Like I hope that that's where the world is going. Because once it gets there, it'll be easy to keep them down. You know, like it'll be easy to keep
Yeah,
the
I
white
hope
supremacists
so.
down.
I hope so. I mean, but like it's so insidious, you know, like
Yeah.
there's a lot of like internalized. I mean, I know for myself too, like there's a lot of internalized like racism and sexism that I have to like even for myself like catch myself like be like, "No. No."
Yeah.
Like
Say
that's
something.
sexist. Like
Yeah.
you can carry this. Like you can also carry something. You don't have to be a man to like do this, you know.
Right.
So like that's kind of what's so like disturbing about all that shit. It's like external, but it's also like internalized too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to get back to your work.
Oh yeah.
No, but I just feel like you like I love that I can do that with this show and that it can just
Yeah.
literally be about like what's on your mind this week
Yeah.
because there's no restriction about what we talk about. And
Yeah.
it's not necessarily topical, but artists are always topical. And I think we're absorbing culture and filtering it through our work and talking about it. And right now, this is my work and your work at the moment.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and I just really appreciate you being here and like talking about that stuff and like thinking through it. You're again absorbing and being like are coming through in your work, whether you're intending that to be or not.
Yeah.
So you're spending a lot of time duplicating tools. Like you sent me this great list of like the sort of things that you're working on.
Oh yeah.
And one of
it
them
felt so like fragmented, like all over the
it was
place.
so good. But one of them was you're duplicating utensils, right? Is that what you wrote?
I've been making a lot of objects like I don't know tools, but like drains, traffic cones,
Right.
like pillows,
I
like
saw that
ceramic
great fly
pillows.
swatter that was really tiny next to
Oh,
the regular
yeah,
site. You have
totally.
it hanging near your studio.
Yeah,
Regular fly swatter, and then
the actual fly swatter.
yeah,
Yeah.
but the one that you made shrunk in the kiln, so it looks like this little pathetic
Yeah,
crooked
yeah,
thing.
totally, totally.
But like, there's just something about using the medium to like this, like especially a fly swatter. Like like a ceramic fly swatter is absolutely
Like useless.
yeah, it is way up there.
It's
But like
totally
so is a
useless.
drain.
Yeah.
And so is like I've seen you make stools in
Yeah.
the past. Like those are also likely very useless, or would be surprising when they decide to
Yeah.
not work. But then like you have this long history of making fruit and vegetables and meat and food.
Yeah.
And then also rotten versions of all those things.
Yeah.
So where does that one come from?
Yeah, you know, well, like, I don't, I have this, like, I'm really, well, like, I think on, like, two levels, I'm really fascinated with this idea of, like, authenticity and, like, what's real, what's original, you know? And then on another level, I'm really, like, into this idea of, like, ugly beautiful.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of what we consider ugly or beautiful is very like cultural, right? Like, I mean, you could see in like, you know, Western notions of art, like beautiful statues, like representational, like that's considered like Greek statues, those are beautiful, but like other ones are not beautiful. And so I think that really ties to culture. And I think about like food, like, you know, like Chinese food has like a lot of like weird I don't want to say weird, but like we have like kind of Chinese food has kind of more tolerance for like different textures, you know, like intestine is like very chewy, like slimy. Like there's kind of like more variance than I think like that there's more variance than what you typically see in like American Western cuisine.
Yeah.
And so like I think culturally like this idea of like what's good and what's bad, like for me, you know, because of like growing up in the United States, like, you know, there are things where like, oh, is that weird? Is that good? Like, is that bad? You know, because a lot of the times it would just come down to a matter of culture. Like,
Right.
like you grew up this way, you were like brought up by a society that expected this, and like, it doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad. Like universally, it just means like you were brought up this way. Yeah, I don't know. So that's kind of what I think about with that kind of stuff.
I love thinking about that
Yeah.
because I'm in a similar boat. Like I feel like there's so many things that I didn't experience when I was younger, just because of where I was. That like
Yeah.
I can't believe that I like didn't have an avocado until I was like 20. You know, like seriously, and I can't believe that like I didn't really like have I don't know kimchi until I was like 30,
Yeah.
you know, or like Ethiopian food until I was like in my late 20s, you know, like all of my absolute favorite things to go and seek out didn't cross my palate um, because of just of where I was,
Yeah.
and if they would have, I would have been like gross. That is absolutely gross. That looks gross.
Yeah,
It feels
totally,
gross.
right?
The texture
Yeah.
in my mouth is gross
Yeah.
because I had this you know very quite boring like American German diet.
Actually, a lot of
American German
American food
Italian.
is. We lived in the like in Michigan for like a semester, and
Uh-huh.
like a lot of that food was really. It was like a lot of like, what is that called? Like the fluffy marshmallow you get from a jar.
Oh, fluff. This is
It's
fluff.
just fluff. Yeah,
Ugh.
like that was
I would
like
have fluff sandwiches like every summer, like three or
people
four
would
times.
just like scoop that shit up. It would be served at like a salad bar,
Oh my
just like a
god.
big tray, and
Of
people
like
would like
whipped sugar.
adults, yeah, like adults like would come and just like scoop it up and eat it.
Oh my god.
I was like, this is gross.
Willis and I stayed in a hotel in Puerto Vallarta in February, our
Yeah.
last vacation, for maybe forever. And there was a buffet, and it was like, there were a lot of Americans and Canadians there,
Yeah.
but the buffet was like very, very Mexican. And
Yeah.
there was like the American area, and they were all there. And everybody else got this amazing like variety of food, but that 10% people only ate from this one little section of the
Yeah.
buffet, and it like made me really sad. Like every day it made me really sad,
Yeah.
and every day when I because everything else was changed every day,
Yeah.
whereas that just stayed the same. It was like the same sort of like wings and hot dogs, and like it was just so sad.
Yeah.
But like the idea of taking that idea of good, bad, beautiful, not beautiful, and
Yeah.
like filtering it through ceramics. Like, were you always a ceramicist, or did you find it as the best way to vent those ideas of like gross versus beautiful?
Yeah, I wasn't always. I mean, I guess I've been working with clay for like so long now. Like it's hard for me, because you work with clay like as a little kid maybe in your like elementary school, but I got into ceramics more like in high school, basically because no one. I mean, ceramics always has, or not always, but like has had this like weird position in like fine art, like kind of being this like it's not really art, it's craft, you guys. Like, don't worry about
Right.
ceramics. It's not cool. So
Glass.
like when I was in high school, like most people were taking like the cool like, painting and like sculpture, like installation art, and so like the ceramic studio, for whatever reason, was like really underutilized. Like, and I think clay can also be really frustrating too. Like if you're trying to make, if you're trying to make this like big giant like conceptual thing, it can be really frustrating. And so for whatever reason, like the ceramic studio at my school, which was like awesome, no one really used. And then so like that's kind of where I got more into it. 'Cause I was like, oh, it's quiet here. Like
Yeah.
everyone leaves me alone. Like, okay, this is where I'll be.
Oh
And
my
then in
God.
college, like I had gone in wanting to be a painter.
Uh-huh.
Like, I was like, I just remember I took this like, and it's so random too. I took this like one painting class, and it was like the only painting class I could get into that semester, like my freshman year. And it was like, the guy was just such a dick. Like, I don't remember who he was, but I remember he had this like really big reputation at the school. And I took the class with him, and he just like, I don't know, it just was like so arrogant. I just like couldn't deal with him. And then I had a friend who was in ceramics, and he had been there longer than I had. And again, it was like a really underutilized studio because the school's like conceptual. So they were like, I don't know why we have clay here. Like they're kind of like, it was like really like underutilized, even though it had amazing facilities. So I ended up like hanging out with him in the studio, and then he ended up getting to like another like studio. So I basically, even though I wasn't in any clay classes, I ended up like taking over his studio. And all of the materials were provided by the department. So like
Oh wow.
I never had to buy clay, I never had to buy glazes. It was all did. Like I didn't have to worry about firing fees, you know, outside. So it was like, yeah. And when I was taking the painting class, I remember we used to like there was like a kid who would shoplift at Pearl. I think Pearl was like the closest art store. And so like what we would do is like we would actually like basically I would go to Pearl and like walk down different aisles. And I would write like aisle 3 left side. Like and I would give him like what I wanted and then he would shoplift it and then bring it to class. And like you know, I would tally up the prices. So then I would pay like maybe half of that of the full price. So I'd get like whatever materials. But it was really stressful because I was like, oh my God, he's gonna go to jail. He's gonna get caught, and like it's gonna be because like I need these fucking watercolor crayons.
Everybody had that friend.
Yeah, really? Okay. I just like could not handle it.
It's so funny. Like in high school, I had a friend that worked at Staples that would help me get computer parts. And then like in undergrad, I had a friend at Utrecht in DC that would get me painting supplies.
Yeah.
And then Willis worked at Center Hardware and would get like
Oh,
38%.
yeah.
She would get everything at cost.
Oh shit.
And so like I would give her regular orders when we first started dating, and it would just be like bolt cutter. Like it would just be like stuff that would like she'd be like, do you know what bolt cutters actually cost? They're like $4. And I'm like, I'll take one. They're like $30 off the
Yeah, it's hard when you're. I mean, you know, art. It's like you don't make that much money, so it's hard if you're gonna like put down all this money for supplies. So, anyway, so yeah, so then I just was like, ceramics is free, like, and I could just be here, and like I have so much space, like, I will. This is, you know, this is the
so
jam.
good. I felt it's so funny that I felt the same way with metalwork.
Yeah.
Like I felt like when I was in school, metalwork was like nobody could be around, and I could just be in. And there would be like the graduate students, which they were so much better than me, that it
No,
was
they weren't.
great to have them around. Because I mean I learned how to weld from graduate students. I didn't
Yeah.
learn how to weld from teachers. Like
That's true.
I learned from graduate students walking by and be like, yeah, that sucks. You want to know how to do it properly? Like,
Yeah.
you buy me a beer tomorrow and I'll show you how to do that properly. Like
Yeah.
that was like how it happened. But yeah, I like filtering. It's so funny. Like, do you? So now you are a ceramicist.
Yeah.
You feel like that is like you're locked in.
Yeah, I do. Well, actually, I was gonna say too, like, I don't know. There's something about clay too. It's like a very different experience for me than when I work with other materials. Like, my MFA is actually in sculpture, so I've like
Right.
done metal. I've like, I mean, not well, but I did it. Like, and I did wood, and like not well, but I did it. And like, I was really into fabric in grad school. I don't know, but like something about clay, like about the materiality. Like, there are just so many. Just like the process of working with clay, it's like, I feel like clay is like has all these contradictions into it. It's like soft but hard. It's like it has like a very low threshold. Like you can be like a 3-year-old playing with clay, but you can also be like an industrial engineer working with clay, like making ceramic like parts for rockets or whatever.
Yes.
I just feel like there's all these different levels, and like every culture or most cultures have like a history of ceramics in their, you know, and there's whatever civilization, and I don't know. It's just really cool. It's cool.
And it's an amazing medium because like you can get your idea into it very quickly,
Yeah.
and then there's all these things that could change that trajectory.
Yeah. It's also therapeutic.
Yeah.
And like just to be real, I feel like a lot of times I teach, you know, I teach ceramics at like academic institutions. So I feel like there's this like, you know, of course there's like this high pressure to like be very conceptual and like intellectual and academic and do your research and whatever with your art practice. And you know, I think that's super valuable, but I also think like it would be ridiculous to ignore the fact that like you should enjoy it. Like you should like the like physicality of it, you should enjoy it, like the practice of it. It is a practice, you know. It's like an embodied practice. So like, you know, a lot of times like I feel like a lot of times I have to tell my students like stop thinking so much. Like you're thinking too much and it's inhibiting you from making the work that you need to make, you know. So I mean it's, you know, there needs to be both. Like I think there needs to be both, but I also think like clay is like really wonderful because it reminds you that you're just like sticking your hand in dirt. You're like making a mud pie. You know, there's something really, I think, beautiful and gratifying about that.
Yeah, you're right. One of the things I was thinking when you were just speaking is how I've recognized your work without seeing your name on it
Oh, really?
a bunch of times.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, we're in the Bay, and there's not like a lot of ceramics in the Bay, but like totally like at auctions and at like
Oh, yeah.
group shows or at little sales and stuff like
Yeah.
that, or even like images. Like I'll just like scrolling through my Instagram feed, and be like, oh, that's totally Cathy Lu. Like before I
Yeah.
see your name, like there's something about like the fact that your like the way you work the material, the way you fire things, the colors you choose, like has started to have a you-ness,
Oh.
a Cathy Lu-ness that is really really cool. You know, and I've been lucky enough to receive some Cathy Lu gifts over the years, and they're like the coolest, grossest. Like you gave us an incense holder that is like a butt, and it's like the like most uncomfortable thing to do, and I like.
It's pretty fun,
really,
right?
Oh, it's fantastic. Did you make others of those?
I mean, it's kind of funny because I never, like when I'm making them, I don't know. It's like, for a long time I was like
Screaming kids, sorry about that. Screaming
Well,
kids.
when I was like slip casting fruit, a lot of times I'd be like, I would make them and they'd be like, it just doesn't look right, and they would like paint a bruise or like a bleeding spot.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, like somehow it feels like more normal now, or like
If it's
more.
if you commit to it being rotten, it's
Yeah, like
better.
it just feels. I don't know, just something about it doesn't like seem to really be right until there's something like wrong with it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like cute. I'm like, oh, cute. I'll put a little bruise here and a little bleeding spot here, and like it kind. I don't know.
If we seem distracted, there's two things that are happening. One, mosquitoes, which I forgot about when I decided to do this at 6 p.m. And number two, I have neighbors with like 3 to 8-year-old children, a girl and a boy, that sometimes have really fun play fighting, and they're like 100 yards away, but it's loud enough that we can hear it, and maybe it's not coming through the mics, but it sounds like some like children are being murdered up the hill. So my apologies if we pause.
Maybe they're watching the live stream.
Yeah, maybe they're watching the live stream and they're just so excited.
They're just so into it.
There are people watching the live stream. There's people watching it. Sorry,
Oh, no.
Cathy. I didn't mean to tell you that. Cool. Like when we like launched into COVID, you were in the middle of teaching, right?
Yeah.
And so you had to figure out
Oh,
how
God.
to teach a physical studio class, or at least finish a semester, more
Yeah.
than half of one, right?
Yeah.
Online.
Yeah.
Like, how did you do that?
I mean, I just did my best.
Yeah.
Like, and I try to make it really clear to the students, like, I don't know what the fuck is happening. Like, this is
Right.
actually a nightmare.
Yeah, right.
Like, the words online teaching is a nightmare. Like, I like clay because it's, like, low tech.
Right.
Like, I don't like being on a computer.
Right.
So, like, I just, I was like, I just want to be clear about that. But I also think that, like, we're in a circumstance where we have to do this. And so, like, let's make the best of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so I just try to think of, like, different things that, like, could be more fun. And, like, part of me was like, oh, maybe, because all the teachers are basically like, what the fuck do we do now?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
so a lot of people, it was really great. There's all these, like, resources online, and all the departments I worked for, I think were pretty good about being like, there's this resource, and, like, talking us through the process. But I know for me, like, I definitely wanted them to still, like, because I think there are some people who are strategizing like, okay, well, let's just make this like a research thing. And I was like, oh, that sounds terrible. Like, to have them like on the screen even more, and like, you don't go to clay class because you're like, I want to do, I don't know, maybe
learn on
this is like,
YouTube, right?
maybe I'm
Like-
like injecting myself too much into it. But I'm like, people normally want to do ceramics because they want to like work with their hands,
Yeah.
right? So I just like did my best to try to like have like short things that was like, just still making sure that they're still like making,
Mm-hmm.
and like I did work for like an private art called like CCA, where it's like, they go to that school like knowing they want to be an artist, designer, maker, whatever.
Right.
And so like I just, and also for myself too, I know how important it is to like make,
Mm-hmm.
like just as like a process, as like meditation, as like a practice, like just to continually make things.
Yeah.
And so I just like wanted that to be, like, I mean, we still did like a research-based proposal and whatever, but like I was like, this is how you would dig for clay. Like some of them dug for clay, and like we made like a claymation.
Oh.
Yeah. Which we would have normally.
Did you like, was there class budget to just like send everybody like some plasticine or send everybody
No.
something to like have in their shade
No,
dorm?
we didn't send out. So our understanding was that like we should instruct these classes as if they had nothing. Like they have like.
Got it.
So it basically became, ceramics class. It's like, it's not like painting or sculpture where it's like, it's more named after the technique.
Uh-huh.
I guess, but not so much the actual material like clay. It's like ceramics is clay,
Yeah.
So it was like weird, but I was like, okay, well maybe we can apply like different themes. Like, the first thing we did was like I had them like look up a historic object and like a historic ceramic object and like recreate it. And like they could approach it different ways. Like they could approach it like formally.
Uh-huh.
They could approach it like, okay, well I know how to coil build. Maybe I could coil build with like my socks. Like maybe I could shave the form. Like maybe I could make my hair into that vessel. Like
Oh, wow.
pretty like free form. And like they made really cool stuff. But yeah, it's just like very loose and like I try to keep it as like, I don't know. Like it kind of became like mental check-ins. It kind of became mostly about like mental checking in and just like also like encouragement to continue making and seeing like making and their art practice as still valuable during this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I imagine comfort with what you could perceive as failure. Like just be comfortable with the fact that you're doing something.
Yeah.
And that's part of this, and that's going to be part of your art practice.
Yeah.
Like if you maintain an artistic practice, like you got to just get used to not having ideas for a while or like just making to keep making,
Yeah, and I actually was like, I'm not even going to call these assignments or projects. I was like, these are all experiments. From now on, we're just doing experiments because like, who knows what'll happen? Like, I don't know. I've never done this. Like, I've never taught during a global pandemic. Like,
yeah, right. I was teaching at Mills and it was like this exhibition design class and it was like, well, the exhibition was out the window. And there were 2 classes left when it got canceled. It was only like a 4-class.
Oh yeah, that's right. You
lecture.
mentioned that. Yeah.
And so I was like, well, let's just meet for half an hour every week and just figure out how to do stuff. And like this came out of that. Like my joy.
Oh, cool.
Of like hearing them struggle with what to do.
Your joy
like,
with hearing them struggle.
Yeah. No, like the joy, but also like to receive that information and then like be able to throw out ideas and like change the subject in a way that like helps them think about a new thing.
Yeah.
Was what I was like, oh, that's what I really love to do. I love to just talk to people about the thing that they're working on.
Yeah.
And offer suggestions and have that shut down and then offer another one and then just offer support. Like, like if none of that works, like what is the way to go?
Yeah, I feel, it's interesting because I feel like in art school there's this pressure to be like so judgy and so critical.
Yeah.
And that's important too, to be critical. Like that is important, but I think, there's also value in just like making whatever, like, I mean, I'm pretty snobby about this too, but I'm like, it's fine. Just make a planter. Like if that's what's in you right now, like during COVID.
And you teach at Berkeley too, so like you teach at a state school in addition to an art school. So there must be people that are like, I don't really care what you want me to make, but I'm going to make an ashtray. Like, is that a thing?
Like in the beginning, like I'm definitely like very, I try to be, I'm like nice. I'm smiling. I'm like small and I'm like energetic. So like, I think they get confused. I'm serious. Like this happens all the time where they're like, oh, the nice lady is like saying some real harsh shit to me. And I don't like that. So I think that is confusing. But I do try to be really clear, like this is not a pottery class. Like we're not here. Like you can make that cup, like for your mom for her birthday. Like that's awesome. And I totally like, you can. But like that's not the focus of our class. Like we do have like assignments. The assignments are structured so that you can interpret it in a way to like make it what you want it to be. Yeah. But like, and you can make whatever you want in this class, but like there are specific projects I'm asking you to do. So yeah. And I've had those conversations like earlier this semester, a student was like, I don't understand. Like, I understand, like, I forgot what she said, but it was basically like, I just came here to make stuff. Like, I'm not interested in learning about like ceramic arts and like, researching contemporary artists. Like I just want to make stuff, you know.
Right. And did you have to say like, well, then you took the wrong class at the wrong school?
Well, I try to explain to her like, yeah, you know what you're like, you know, I'm sorry because maybe I wasn't clear enough from the very beginning, but it is in our syllabus. Like I did say this, and like I try to be very like diplomatic about it. Like,
Right.
you know, like you know, you will have like you do have the capacity to like make whatever it is you want to make, but like
Right.
this is an academic class. Like we are in a college, so like it
Right.
wouldn't be.
There's research that must be done.
Yeah, it
There's-
wouldn't be fair to you to like, you know, because you can actually take a pottery class. You could take it for much cheaper elsewhere. Like there's
Yeah.
like no reason for you to take a class at a academic institution that doesn't involve like rigor.
Yeah, right, right, and like a judgment scale that is created by
has
a
to be
person of
balanced.
leadership.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. It is funny.
So do you like, has your practice picked up? Like are you like in a like a flow stream of making, or are you like trying to figure out what's next?
I'm just like honestly, I'm just kind of taking it day to day, like
Yeah.
week to week. I'm trying not to be too like, because it is really stressful. I think, you know, for artists, like a lot about our lives are so unstable anyway. You know,
Yeah,
like I'm adjunct, so like that's just, you know.
that may be done for a while.
Unfortunately. Yeah, like it's very unstable. Like schools, their enrollments are dropping, you know, that kind of thing. So it's like, it is difficult, I think, to have this like, I know for me, I was like, what the fuck? Like, it sort of felt like I'd gotten to a place where it's like somewhat stable. And then it was like, oh, global pandemic, great. Like,
yeah.
as if shit wasn't like fucked up enough, you know? So yeah, I think, so yeah, I'm just trying to be more like, whatever it is, I guess just more generous, really. Just like, if I'm interested in doing this thing right now, like, then I'll do it, you know, like, if I want to do this, if I want to try this out, like I'll just go ahead and do that and just like kind of deal with the issues as they come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the like what did you work on most recently?
Oh, I've been actually, because of the global pandemic, I started to like, I figured out that like I could get clay from my backyard. Like it's like the soil enrichment is like almost 50% clay.
How do you test that? Do you have like testing equipment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Yes, like no, you don't need testing equipment. Like I sort of figured out like easy ways to see, like, you know, there's like a donut test where if you take like a gooey piece of mud or clay or whatever.
You have your own kiln,
and then
right.
like, you know, you make it into a circle. Yeah, and then I did some test firings, you know. So that was cool because like, you know, I had, you know, there's a lot of artists that like work with clay that they dig up, you know, like Alana Crispy's, like I really love her work, and Rosa Novak, and like I never really felt, I don't know, I was always kind of like, well, I could just go to the store.
Yeah, right.
Like, you know, like conceptually there wasn't like a really big reason for me to like dig my own clay or whatever. But yeah, during COVID, shelter in place, I was like, shit.
Yeah.
I don't have clay.
Yeah.
So like it was cool to like kind of test that out, and like and it was cool because I also felt more like comfortable teaching it to the students too. Like this is how we would dig for clay, and like just sort of this idea of like being resourceful, like all of these like different challenges that we're facing.
Yeah.
Like just sort of like you know, like getting over that initial hump of like being disappointed because something fell through, or like you don't have access to something or whatever. Once you're like sort of able to like mentally overcome that, like sort of recognizing how resourceful you can be. Like, okay, I don't have a lot of resources right now. I can just like whatever, stick my hand in the ground.
Yeah.
Pull up some dirt.
Like I think that there's something about like being an artist and making things better. Like Willis and I talk about this a lot. Like we're stuck in this loop that no matter what situation we're in, like we can't just accept what's happening. We must make it better. And this keeps getting us into trouble with like our finances and like rental situations, because it's like we're renting this house, but like I'm going to redo the irrigation system in the front yard, even though I'm not going to get reimbursed, and that's like 40 hours that are gone forever from my life.
You and Willis are like the hardest workers I know.
But it's because we have, for whatever reason, we're just like, it's our duty to make whatever is happening a little bit better.
Yeah.
Like whatever it is, like we should leave it better than we found it. You know?
Yeah.
And I love that um, you use this excuse to teach your students that, like, that same thing. It's like it's your duty to like figure it out, like, make the best of it,
Yeah.
make a good
Well, make the
situation out
best
of
of
it.
it for yourself
Yeah,
too. Like I think that's also part of it because
like
like they were really, I mean, like they were really like hardcore struggle bus. Like
yeah.
they were on the struggle bus.
Yeah, I mean, these were like first year MFA students that like knew that this was not going to happen again. Like they were like, "What are we going to do? How do we deal with the fact that this is now done
Yeah.
before it started, and we won't get a chance to come back to it?" And I was like, "Well, just like there were three goals. One of them was the exhibition. Like, let's concentrate on collaborating, and
Yeah.
let's concentrate on like working outside of your practice on a
Yeah.
new sort of thing. Like,
Yeah.
how do we take those two things
Yeah.
that aren't the exhibition and like focus on that?" And
Yeah.
they like came up with this. They made it like an Instagram channel, and like they came up with this great way to like do groupings of 9 images that created a full image on Instagram, like in the
Oh
in
yeah,
the
yeah. I've seen people do that. Yeah. I
like
don't know how
they
to do
did all
that.
these really great things, and
Yeah.
like all the concepts were really wild, and like they were all stuck. Like one of them was stuck in their apartment, one of them was stuck on campus. Like they were all over the place, and they were, they had regular meetings.
I had a
And,
student in quarantine in China when
like they went to visit and then got stuck there.
No, no, she was trying to go home. Like I have a lot of international I had a lot of international students in one of my
Right.
classes, so it was like one was in China, and then like you have to be in 14-day quarantine once you get back. And like
Oh, right.
even trying to fly to China was like this whole ordeal, finding a ticket. And I had a student who was like living in Korea, and all of her classes were like from like 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. I had another student who was like kind of afraid, I think like genuinely afraid to leave her dorm room. And like I remember the school was like doing some sort of renovation on the dorm, and so they like covered her like one window, and it was covered for like I think over a week. And I could tell, like, and it's funny because she wasn't like telling me all this, but I could tell like her like demeanor and like the way she was
Like
like,
she was
oh
lit. Like
yeah,
it was
like,
nighttime.
yeah, I was like, oh, what's going on, like.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah, this is all so strange. Um. So did you have like things that you were working towards that evaporated, like shows or?
um Not specifically. I had like, I guess so. Like I was gonna be in NCECA. Like that was pretty stressful. I remember because there's this like national clay conference that they do every year, and I was gonna exhibit there. And it was like I think it was literally on a Wednesday. I was calling them to be like, "Are you sure this is gonna happen?"
Yeah.
Like, because like the amount. Being an artist is such a raw deal because like even though like you get we're giving you this award, like financial reward, but then they're like, but you have to pay for shipping. You're like, oh, okay, like I'll do that. And then you're like, wait, it's gonna cost me how much to ship? And then like
Right.
once I get it to like the conference center, there's what fee? Like there's a loading dock fee.
And
Like
the union
there's
guys
like,
and
yeah, totally. So there's all these like fees, and then they're like, but and I remember I had talked to the conference people about it. They're like, oh, but we gave you a financial award. And I was like, oh, so I don't know. It's just weird. The way art is funded is so weird.
yeah.
Anyway, so I was like really stressed out about that because like one, it was like really it's like an ordeal to package the work. Like
Yes.
ceramic work for shipping is like such an ordeal, and it was like a large work, and then it was like it would be coming out of my pocket, and I was just even trying my best not to like go into debt more.
Right.
So I was like, fuck, and so I was calling her. I was like, are you sure this conference is happening? Like, but yeah, so they canceled. Like, luckily they canceled it before we shipped it and whatever. So I guess that kind of fell through, but it just is getting postponed till later.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Conferences.
Yeah.
I just had this conversation with my mom about like conferences and how like they're not gonna be like that again. Like where people like are like 300 people or like 4,000 people are in a conference center together all at the same time for 2 days, and then all staying in the same hotels. Like that's probably not gonna happen for a long time in that same way. Like it's a very specific thing that humans did.
There's so many
And
things. Yeah.
may not do again.
Yeah, I'm super. I mean, we could just wait and see, right? Like we don't know. Yeah.
That's funny. Because like what they say that like one of the things that kicked it all off in America was the the gaming like the Las Vegas gaming.
Oh, really?
I forget what it's called, but it's like the main like annual gaming convention. It was a ton of people from China and Japan came, and people were like, there were like posts that you can go back and look at when everybody was leaving, that like the airport in Las Vegas, everybody was coughing and sneezing.
Oh,
Everybody
no.
had it, and this was like early January,
Yeah.
and it was before it was on many people's radar. But like my neighbors, one of them who works for PlayStation was like went to Japan in November and December, and then came back and then went to that and came back and was super sick, and
Whoa.
it was around and people just weren't. Everybody just thought it was the flu. Yeah,
Whoa.
there's some crazy stuff, but like that probably was a what are they calling them, master spreader events, or like
Master spreader events.
like what's the
A
the word
Trump
for it?
rally.
Yeah, yeah, any old Trump rally. Um, I try to pick a quote for these. And,
Okay.
Um, I pulled it out of this same book that I pull about half of these out of.
Wait, what book is this?
It's so. Have you watched me describe this? So for those of you who haven't heard me describe this on one of the other episodes of This New Idea, this is this book called The Act of Creation, written by Arthur Koestler, an extremely problematic Bulgarian, I think. And as for most people that lived in the early 20th century, had multiple wives and rape accusations, and it
Oh,
makes me feel
God.
really bad to like dig into it. But he wrote this book really late in his career. And it was on like a whole series of lectures, and the whole book is about like creative thought, and it's told through the perspective of humor, science, and art, and then swirls around in all of those, and it's like a textbook on reference of other theorists, which is why I find it so valuable.
Huh.
Is that he like pretty much doesn't go a paragraph without referencing somebody else's work who's better than him, which I just really appreciate in any book, because I feel like that's, if I ever wrote a book, it would just be me like restating smarter people's ideas in a way that made me feel like I was important too, which is, I'm sure, the way he felt. But it's been out of print for decades, and I found it at a used bookstore. It was my first theory class ever in University of Maryland, like in 2003. My professor would do printouts of photocopies from this book from when she was
Oh,
younger.
wow.
And then I loved it so much that I
Oh
went
my
and found it.
God.
But it was just like the stuff about humor really got to me, because it was like when you take apart how you craft a joke, it's like one of the most creative things we do, and I think you'd appreciate that stuff too, because it's like it really is an exercise in creating a false sense of expectation and then subverting that.
Huh.
And I feel like good artists do that same thing, where it's like you're expecting to see one thing, but when you see a different thing, it gives you a release, and that is like love or laughing or horror or crying.
Yeah.
Like that emotion that you're generating is like, humor defines that really well. And there's like all this stuff about like how humor is so close to horror, and like crying and
Yeah.
like laughing and crying is right next to each other.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm not in that section of the book. So the latter section of the book, it really digs into like curiosity, and this is this section. I forget what the section is called. I think the section is like on motivation. And this is the beginning of this section that's called Hunger, Fear, and Curiosity, which I thought, because we're doing our best having a conversation in the wind amidst COVID and mosquitoes, that I would talk about this. So it took natural philosophy nearly 1,000 years to rediscover that the Earth is round. It took experimental psychology nearly 50 years to rediscover, after its dark ages of needing reducing SR theories, that rats and men are pleasure-seeking creatures, and some activities are pleasurably self-rewarding, and that exploring the environment, solving a chess problem, or learning to play the guitar are among these activities. An interesting reflection on the spirit of the times was the long impassioned controversy which followed the earth-shaking discovery that rats, who were allowed to familiarize themselves with the maze by running around it without reward, got quicker to the food box when it was eventually put in then the control rats who ran the maze for the first time. I have to read that again because I screwed it up somewhere. The rats were allowed to familiarize themselves with the maze by running around in it without reward, got quicker to the food box when this was eventually put in the then control of rats who ran the maze the first time. Oh, right. How could the rat profit from its previous experience in the maze without being rewarded by food or punished by electric shock? As Berlin put it, there are plenty of experiments to show that latent maze learning can occur in the rat, which is embarrassing for those theories who are not built to assimilate it. Where does the reinforcement of these responses come from? Several writers have considered the possibility that it comes from the reduction of curiosity. Other writers suggested that it came from the drive-reducing diminution of boredom. One might as well say that composing a song is silence-reducing activity. I don't know. I just I like the idea that there aren't a lot of creatures that are like dying to make and like dying to figure out better ways to explore and to be creative. And I feel like the rat metaphor made me happy when I read it.
It's Year of the Rat.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's right.
And it's also my sign. I'm a rat.
You're a rat.
Yeah.
Oh, so I gave you a
Perfect.
really good quote by accident. I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking about you and I being rats. As artists, all artists are rats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, do you feel like you have no other choice but to be creative?
Yeah.
And that even if you feel like sometimes you're bad at it, like there's no better way forward.
Yeah.
Why with such disappointment?
I don't know. I think it was even like up to like maybe 4 years ago where I was still like, it's not too late. I can go to dental school. It's not too late. I can like I don't have those thoughts as much now. Where I'm like, no, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
But because it's not. I think being a creative person, I guess the type of creatives that we are, like I don't know, where it's like not so monetary driven.
Right.
I think it's difficult. Like, it is difficult. So it's hard to. I don't know. It's hard, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been like on the job hunt for a while, and I've been really digging into this not soft skills, that actually the hard skills that I've developed in my travels is trying to keep art alive in my life.
Yeah.
And the things that I've gotten much better at, like involving administration and like change management and like all these things that like these things that I've been doing with Aggregate and with local language and with other organizations that really feed back into the business world in weird ways.
Yeah.
Because they're like after people that have these skills, but they're not skills that are readily available because you don't do them unless you run a like semi-failing business for a really long time, or like are constantly in flux. Like if your business is about something that isn't a widget, like if you're about something that's greater than that, like how do you keep alive in such a complicated scenario? And I get like so excited thinking about like I accidentally learned these things that people are after, for their whole lives.
Yeah.
And I hope at some point I can figure out a way to like use them for better, for good.
You have so many skills. You have like a crazy amount of skills.
Yeah, but you do too. I mean,
no,
like,
I don't.
That's not true. You and I are of the same. You and I and Aaron and Willis and like the vast majority of our friends are people that like reach a stumbling block and are like, I'm going to solve this. I'm going to solve this in a way that isn't turning around.
Yeah.
I'm going to fight through it head on with a friend or with YouTube or with a book. Like I'm going to figure out a way around this problem.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to solve a problem that doesn't exist because I like solving problems.
Yeah. I don't think of you as having run a failing business.
I didn't. I mean, but like it's one that doesn't have an easy way out, right?
Well,
like there's certain businesses like a restaurant, for example, where like the solution is make better food cheaper and get people in the door.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah, it's kind of.
there's like a one sentence answer to like why you're failing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like so hard because I know for me too, I think about it with art practice a lot, like this idea of like failing or not successful or whatever. And that's always like in terms of like finances, I feel.
Yeah, but
Because we live in
that's
like a capitalist society. But
yeah.
like when you think of all the other, like kind of the emotional value or like spiritual value,
Right.
community value, like huge community value, I don't know. Then in that sense, it's like super successful. It's like the most important thing.
Yeah. Well, and I hope that comes back. I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
we like this country has spent like 40 straight years putting like the value of what's in the stakeholders' pockets above everything else.
Longer.
You know.
Yeah.
And it's.
I mean, this country was built on slavery, so.
Yeah, that's true. But there was a moment there where it looked like it could. Maybe go in a different direction where
Yeah.
the populace had a little bit more control, and
Yeah.
that's been slowly that moment from the 60s and 70s has been undone 1,000-fold in the last 40 years. But I think it's going to come back. I think there are going to be corporations out there that develop the understanding, the requirement that their shareholders are only one piece of the puzzle, and that they need to do good on the environment, and they need to do good on humanity. And
Yeah.
I hope that, like, the people that I love can be part of that conversation.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I
We'll
don't
see.
know. I think, yeah, yeah, I mean, I think it's important to be hopeful.
Oh, yes. Important to be hopeful.
I do, yeah, because I mean, I don't know. It's like if you're aware of like history at all, like it's so depressing, right?
Yeah.
It's so depressing. But there's like these small moments of beauty. That's like what you have to hold on to, I think.
They usually involve political uprisings.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think about like even on a much smaller scale, like working somewhere, right? Like I think like even academia, right, which is also like predominantly white, and like when there is like people of color, it's usually like a 1 year thing or like an adjunct thing, and it's like, and like all of those people, those white people in those white institutions, they're all, I mean, for the most part, like the colleagues I have, like are great, like they're wonderful, but also it's like we're all just part of the system, and like, are they
Right.
gonna give up their job? Like they have
Yeah.
this power, they're just gonna give it up because maybe they've had, I mean, not maybe, because they've had more privilege
Yeah.
than like other people. Like, no, like they also wanna, like they're not gonna give up their job. Like it's
Right. People like I get into this.
people in power they're not just gonna give up their power for the most part.
Yeah. Like all I have at aggregate is power. I don't get paid. Right. Like I haven't been paid in a year. That was part of the deal, though. It was like once we make this change, we're going to make sure that all of the money that we get for aggregate gets funneled into people that are not white. Like that's really been the goal.
Yeah.
And it feels really great, but also it's like, man, I wish that this could be a future for me because I really love doing a lot of it. But like, that shouldn't be my future. Like, there's enough white folks making big decisions about who gets to show their art in the world.
I hope so. Yeah, I don't know. It does seem like people are becoming more aware, or like, I don't know.
I don't know either. Fingers crossed that it like starts to swing in the direction of
Yeah.
justice.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I'm like, see, racism is real. Remember all those times we told you racism is real, and you're like, no, okay.
Well, you mean to like just to like society?
Or just, I don't know, like, even in the like really minor, I mean, I'm Asian American, right? So like I feel, I don't even know that people consider me a person of color sometimes, like.
Right.
But like, I have had experiences where it's like I feel is discrimination.
Yeah.
And like, even I feel kind of like, oh, I don't know. I mean, no one punched me in the face. Like,
Right.
but I do feel like that was discrimination, right? Like,
Yeah. It's a miserable sliding scale of everything.
This got real dark. But I think there is potential for change, and I think that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as long as people like you are making awesome work and like calling out villains, and I'm gonna do my best to keep flowing people through this show that are smarter and more educated than I am on subjects such as ceramics. Anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with me and coming up
thank
to
you for
Vallejo,
having
and
me.
we're gonna put our masks on and make some burgers.
Woo!
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Conrad. This has been wonderful.
Thank you for joining me on this new idea. If you get a chance, subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe. And I will be slowing down these episodes pretty significantly due to some general life crises, but there will be a season 1 on the horizon that will be well planned and operate like clockwork, unlike the excitement of all of these delayed and new technology-based episodes. So thank you for joining Cathy Lu and I will see you on the next episode of This New Idea.